in this demo, I'm going to teach you how to use the match photo function in SketchUp, which is basically one of the ways of working with imported images to create a 3D model. So I'm going to go and find the file that I'm going to use as the match photo. So in this exercise, I'm going to use a house from around Fanshawe College. So you can use any JPEG or TIFF image. You want to make sure that you're looking for all supported image types under your format. And when you find the file you want to make sure you're choosing Use as New Matched Photo, which is a change for us from what we've been doing previously. And when you hit Import, you're going to see the Match Photo dialog box pop up along with a rather strange looking screen. Basically all this screen is hoping that you'll do is identify where the vanishing points are in the image. So basically you're creating a two-point perspective image, and these bars that you're moving and aligning with parallel elements on each of the two main axes tell SketchUp where the vanishing point is for each of those axes. So just align these with an element that you know is straight. Using the line along the ground is generally a bad idea because typically the soil line is not straight. The land's been graded and it usually has some undulation. But things like course of brick or siding, those things are generally straight along with the roof line, although in this house it's a little bit wonky. So align those, and if you have to zoom in to see things a little bit more clearly, you can certainly do that. So you're going to align the red bars on the red axes and then the green bars on the green axes. So the more precise you are with this, the easier things are going to be for you when you actually start modeling. Once we get these bars aligned, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the origin point. So basically we're establishing where the corner is in the image, where the vanishing point is, and with the origin point we're going to align that right with the lead corner of the building. Now I'm not using the roof, I'm actually using the volume of the house itself. So just adjust these till they're the way I want them. Now I grab that origin point and I drag it out, and I want to put it on the ground. And I also want to make sure that it's straight. If it's not straight, you may have to adjust the bars a little wee bit to make it straight, but that's probably the most important thing, is to have that vertical axis be straight. So that's the blue axis. So I want to make sure that is running straight up and down the corner. And that way my textures, when I start working with this, will be a little bit more accurate. So once I'm sure that I have this set the way that I want, I'm going to go ahead and hit Done. Now notice that it's created at the top a little tab that says Photo Match House. That's reflecting the name of the file that I used. That's basically created a scene that I'm always going to be able to go back to, where this image will basically act as a backdrop for my modeling. So I go ahead and hit Done. And now I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. And it's a little bit funny about how it lets you draw a rectangle here. You just have to basically get a rectangle started on one of the axes that corresponds with the object that you're using match photo on. And then you can use the push-pull tool and other similar tools to fill out that volume. But you just have to get it started. So it might be on the ground plane, it might be on one of the horizontal axes, just whichever one it seems to want to cooperate with, because it's a little bit fussy about what it wants to do. Now, one of the really important things when working with Photo Match is remember not to click and drag. You want to click to start the operation and then click to finish. And in between there, you can switch between tabs, or between scenes, you can rotate around, and you can take advantage of using the photo as your backdrop for what you're modeling. So in this case, I'm going to go around and grab the back face or side face of the house, and I'm going to rotate back into the scene with the photo on it, and then I can adjust the size of what I'm creating to match up with the photo, which is very handy. So now I have the basic form of the house. I can go ahead and hit project textures from photo, and that's going to apply the textures to that volume. And then if I orbit around a little bit, you'll see that I have the walls and the front of the house stuck on there, which is pretty cool. So there you go. You can kind of see how we've got the start of a model. So if you're thinking about how you would use this for a landscape design purpose, this is a really easy and fast way to create context. So even if you're going to use this as the basis for a sketch, you can very quickly mock this up, add your design elements. Could be conceptual design, or it could be finished design if you have a plan, and then you've got the ability to adjust your views and use the photos of the, or your 3D model with photo textures of the building as something you can trace from. So it's a really powerful context tool. Clients really like to see their design in the context of what they're living in. Helps them to visualize it much more effectively. So we're going to do the roof. Roofs are really tricky using Match Photo. Generally, as you get towards the corner of the photo, there's definitely some distortion in the images, which tends to make the roofs not work very well. So generally what I do is I will create my own version of the roof that matches it, and then just apply texture to it rather than just using the photo, because it's never really works out right. I did a little offset to create the eaves, or the soffit and fascia, and now I'm just giving 1 inch of thickness, a little bit of thickness, to reflect the edge of the roof. And that's also going to make it easier, because what I want to do is divide this down the middle. So I'm going to move along till I get the midpoint inference, and then I'm going to use the move tool to start pulling this up. And I can just use the photo as a guideline for how tall the roof should actually be. And I'm going to heal this face. I can see I've lost a face here. Not a big deal, I just have to redo the line. And if I go back to my image, I can reproject that texture on there again. And you can see that's fixed. So now I take the move tool and I grab that and start pulling it up. And once I get it moving on the blue axis, I'm going to lock that by holding Shift. And then I'm just going to adjust this until it matches the height in the photo. And then the easiest way I've found for creating the roofs, rather than trying to draw this with the pencil tool or something like that, if I just use the move tool and I grab the point where the roof meets, I can actually just move it back in space so that it matches up with the photograph, which is what I think is generally probably the easiest way to proceed with this. So I've got a reasonable roof there, but I've lost a face. So that was with using the pencil tool. It's an okay way to go, but you're safer to use the move tool as I described, and I'm going to do that instead, because I don't want to have to fuss around too much with trying to recreate this face. It may not fill the way I want, and it's a little bit complicated at the edge there. So that's not something that I really want to mess around with too much. So I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to take the move tool, and I'm going to use the photo as a reference, and I'm just going to move this back in space until it matches up with the photograph. That way you're pretty certain you're not going to lose faces or have anything weird like that happen. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the back. So this generally works pretty well. So the move tool is actually a pretty versatile tool. It is a good modeling tool, and it also is nice for positioning and, of course, rotating things as well. So now I project my textures. You want to do this periodically just to make sure that you have your textures and all the things you want. With that done, that's a great base that I could work from if I had to design this front yard or maybe do the driveway. Now I want to do the little porch that they've put on here, which is slightly sorry looking, but we'll do it anyway. So I'm just going to draw out the rectangle on the wall. So what I'm thinking about here is, what does the volume look like where it meets the wall? And then I have to pull it out so that it's going to match up with the depth that it has in the actual space. So I'm drawing the steps just with the line tool here. And then I'm going to pull both of these profiles out into space to give it the third dimension. And just use the photo as a reference. Do the stairs as well, not quite as far. That works quite easy. Project the textures. And now I should have a model that has stairs and a little bit of a porch. So now what's left to do? Well, there's the back face of the house, which needs some textures applied to it. And then I also want to take advantage of the fact that I can add a ground plane that'll have the photo on it. So this is giving me basically a canvas that I'm going to be able to apply my design on if I was to design this. So I'm just drawing some rectangles, and I'll just keep hitting project textures from photo, and that's going to apply the photo materials to that ground plane. Just draw out a few rectangles. Just want to make sure that I'm encompassing the entire space. And then I'll do another one for the front corner. Then once I get these done, I'll go ahead and hit project textures from photo, which will apply the textures to that ground plane. So this sort of creates almost a little diorama as well. It's got a little bit of depth to it. If you're really requiring it, you can go ahead and trace around the windows and push some of those features in. You can really get quite detailed with doing this. Just going to add a little bit more ground. Now you could add this match photo house to the to a plan you drew with the lot on it. There's a lot of different ways that you could actually use this. And just make sure that you're actually drawing something that's flat on the ground and not distorted in some strange way. And you just keep projecting the textures. And if I orbit around a little bit, you'll see that I have all the information that was in the photograph. But if I look at the roof, I'm not crazy about that, so I'm going to go ahead into the Materials tab. And if I click on the drop down, I can find roofing. And I'm just going to use the shingles from there, because like I said, it tends to distort things a little bit in SketchUp, so that'll work for the purposes certainly of a base drawing. If I was to add my design to this, I would have something that has got the illusion of 3D space, a little bit of depth to it. Now I can also apply the texture from one side to another, so if I don't have the face for this one, I can go ahead and I can copy it, or sample it I should say, from something that's actually in the file and use that, which is a pretty handy feature if you're just doing a quick concept sketch. So I'll use the paint bucket, and I alt click or control click, I'm not sure which it is on PC, but that'll tell you at the bottom of the screen when you open up the tool. And if I really wanted to get carried away, I could trace out other features on the building. I just basically want something that I could use as the base for a drawing, so I'm not trying to do too much here with the model. I'm just trying to create a nice base. And sometimes it's tempting to just texture everything out, but then you start to lose some of the real detail that was there in the actual photograph that you might actually want to trace. So this is looking pretty good. Once I kind of get it the way I want, I'll go ahead and save it, and then I would add my design to this. But overall, it's a shockingly simple technique. It's really quite powerful if you know how to use it. Again, you can use this for things like buildings. You can also use this for a lot where you've got kind of a concave space. It really is quite handy for quickly mocking things up and then modeling to scale in a given area and using that as the basis for a drawing, or as a finished rendering as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm saving it as a SketchUp file, which is the .skp is the native SketchUp software format, file format. And that's the end of the matched photo demo. So thank you for watching, and hope you have fun with this one.